I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello, and a not so warm welcome. Well, I'm welcoming you in a warm way, but it's certainly not as warm as I've been used to in South Africa. Welcome to True Crime Rocket Science from Midtown Manhattan. It is very close to Huerman's office, his original office. And in this analysis, we're going to look at BRYAN KOHBERGER. Does his case all come down to cellphone evidence? What do you guys think? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you want to follow my journey, it's my third visit to America. If you want to follow that, I will be posting regular video blogs on the, what do they call them, vlogs, on to the members only section of this channel. I've already posted 2. But I'll be doing regular vlogs there, so check it out. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. What a difference 18 months makes. Where we are now, KOHBERGER has no motive. He wasn't stalking the girls. He wasn't even following one of them on social media, and wasn't even in the area, according to their defense, on the night of the murders. Based on what I'm seeing on social media, folks are getting whiplash, either believing KOHBERGER is the Moscow, Idaho killer or that he couldn't possibly be. Of late, the discussion has gravitated to KOHBERGER's cell phone data. What do you think? Does it provide him with an alibi? Yes or no? Now, the probable cause affidavit does actually have a rather large loophole, which is that law enforcement can't say, and I have to say I find this kind of mind-boggling, that law enforcement can't actually say whether his phone was turned off, whether it went into airplane mode or simply lost reception, say in an area of very rough topography. And I've driven from Boise to Moscow through some extremely deep canyons, and it is a very sort of rough mountainous area. Starts to flatten out a bit towards Moscow, but there still is rough terrain remaining there. So this idea that reception was lost does make sense. The part that I'm a little unclear about is surely his phone records all the sort of action. Wouldn't his phone show it was turned off if it was turned off? In any event, the affidavit can't seem to answer this. According to the affidavit, on November 13, 2022, at about 2:42 a.m., the A458 phone, that's KOHBERGER's phone, was utilizing cellular resources that provide coverage to 1630 Northeast Valley Road, Pullman, Washington. So that's basically where KOHBERGER resided. I've also been to that area. It's sort of rolling hills between Pullman and Moscow. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the 8458 phone utilized cellular resources that provide coverage southeast of the KOHBERGER residence, consistent with the 8458 phone leaving the KOHBERGER residence and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. Now, if KOHBERGER committed this crime and he needed to get to Moscow, he needed to be heading east, not south. And so that's already something that is kind of concern. Of course, they talk about him going southeast, so he is partially going in that direction. This is consistent with the movement of the white Elantra, and what they don't really say is where it was being spotted exactly, but it's basically showing that there is consistency with the Elantra and some of these movements of the cell phone, how it is pinging. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the 8458 phone stops reporting to the network. So think about that. at around about 3 o'clock in the morning, either his phone is turned off in order to do something. It's like the end game of that situation, or he's driving somewhere and a mountain gets in the way. So it stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with either the phone being in an area without cellular coverage, the connection to the network is disabled, such as the plane going in airplane mode, or that the phone is turned off. His phone goes dark for around 2 hours, which is in the window when the murders happen. But apparently it's not a fact that his phone is turned off. Now, there are a couple of possibilities here. Could Kohberger have taken his phone to somewhere where the signal peters out and deliberately left it there? And you might think that's a far-fetched thing to say, but he did study criminology, he did study criminals, he did study the criminal mind. Was this an attempt to kind of be smart? And so could he have deliberately left it out there? Could he have retrieved it on the way back? And although that's, I think, an interesting argument, a counter to that is, well, why not just leave it at home if that was his intention? His phone showing him going out on the night of the murders is already not a step in the right direction if you're trying to have an alibi. Anyway, let's get serious about this stargazing nonsense. Weather reports, which no one is talking about, clearly shows that stargazing wasn't even an option that night. So I really don't know why people are even talking about it or taking it seriously. It was cold,
like that in
foggy, and overcast.
Just by you
so in that
blocking
respect,
the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation.
even if there's some evidence, I don't think there
light.
is very much, but even if there's some evidence to show that he was heading towards this park, it wasn't for stargazing. And so he's going to need to still explain what it really was, because it was cold, foggy, and overcast. Law enforcement are pretty adamant that the Elantra's movements are consistent with Kohberger's phone. This is important. For me, the cell phone evidence is important, but not paramount to the prosecution's case. All they need to do is show the cell phone moving and appearing as and when the vehicle does, something that we saw in the Caitlin Armstrong case. It's not quite as simple as that, though, because one thing that the Caitlin Armstrong case had that this case doesn't have are telematics. As far as I know, the telematics were an option for that model of vehicle, but only in an upgraded version, and so technically that vehicle didn't have those kind of telematics. So there's another aspect to the Kohberger case that might be harder for a defendant to explain. Why, after being out and about all night, so let's say you accept his story, you went out and about all night, you went hiking, why does he go home and then he apparently returns to the crime scene? I mean, there's no doubt that he went back to Moscow, or let's say he went to Moscow on Sunday morning. So why does he do that? And he may have some kind of explanation. He ordered food, he had to pick up a book or something like that. He wanted to watch the sunrise. He's done stargazing, now he wants to watch the sunrise. But that whatever that argument is, it's got to compete with the criminal narrative, which is, we know that the knife sheath was left behind by the killer, but what is Mr. Stargazer's reason for heading to Moscow first thing on Sunday morning? Wasn't it to go and retrieve that knife sheath? Wasn't it that he thought he may have dropped it on the way out, and then he just drove by and just looked to see if it was perhaps lying around anywhere? Because you can imagine that mistake could cost the perpetrator everything, and maybe that is exactly what he realized. It also very clearly looks like Kohberger drove from his residence to somewhere in Moscow and then came straight back. You tend to do that when you left something behind. I've done the drive myself, and here we see 3 blocks of time. Driving to Moscow about 10 minutes, 10 minutes on the scene doing something, and another 10 minutes driving back. Remember that. Now, funny enough, I'm in Manhattan right now, and I did exactly that when I arrived at the airport to to make this international trip. When I arrived at the airport, I saw that I didn't have my driver's license with me, and so that was the thing I forgot. Immediately drove back, got it, and came back. And isn't that exactly the kind of thing Kohberger did? One of the greatest assets to a defendant is the passage of time and the slow, steady creep of amnesia. The cell phone and vehicle evidence may not be the smoking gun in this case, but whatever the naysayers say, Kohberger doesn't have anything close to resembling the classic alibi, which is an eyewitness. Nobody sees him, and if anything, he disappears from sight at the exact time when he needs to account for his movements. And so if the passage of time in terms of after an incident has taken place is the asset for a defendant, the asset for the prosecutor is always going to be the actual timeline when a crime occurred. Can you explain where you were? Can you explain what you were doing? Kohberger's behavior before the incident, bad Teachergate, as well as after this, including rummaging through the family's kitchen trash late at night, wearing nitrile gloves, cleaning his vehicle and throwing trash into a neighbor's yard at night just before his arrest. These are some of many additional hurdles this defendant will need to climb. I'm not going to take it further than that. If you guys want me to cover the Madeline Soto case, let me know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.